Hey y'all. I thought I would talk about how and why I annotate some of the books I read, not all of them, but some of them. I discovered annotating for pleasure a couple of years ago when I was I was listening to the audiobooks for the Wheel of Time series by not Brandon Sanderson, who wrote, he finished them. Robert Jordan started them. Then he passed away and Brandon Sanderson finished them. But I had started listening to that series on Audible. And when I got to about the fourth book, names started repeating. I thought they were repeating, they were using the same name for multiple characters. And I started getting confused. And actually what was happening was, in the physical book, in the actual books, they were spelled differently, but they were pronounced very similarly. And so I decided at that point that it would probably be better for me to actually visually read the physical books, so I could keep track of people better. And about that time, I had started seeing videos of people who annotate for pleasure. And I thought, well, I think this is probably the perfect time to start doing that, because there's like 15 books in this series. And there's a gajillion, bazillion, million, 11,000 characters. And, I think that annotating would help me keep track. So that's how I started annotating. And I use annotation for fantasy series, any series I read a lot, basically. I've only annotated one standalone book, and that was It by Stephen King. But I have annotated a few of my fantasy series, and I enjoy it. It helps me stay focused. It helps pull me into the book. I have always been kind of a speed reader. If you give me a 3-page scene describing a meadow or a town or anything like that, I'm just going to skim right over it. I'm not going to read that whole thing. If there's like a conversation I don't care about, I'll skim right over that. And a lot of times I miss important information by doing that. So, because like a lot of times I will zoom through a book this thick, within 48 hours. And as soon as I shut the book, if you ask me a single question about it, I can't answer. I don't know. So, annotating helps me to pay attention to the detail, because I read every single line. I read every single word. It pulls me further into the book. It pulls me further into the book. It helps me think about, I'm not just getting an overall impression of the book, which I enjoy doing that too. I mean, I've always enjoyed reading, and even if I've always been into it, but it's a different level of involvement in the book for me when I annotate. So when I first started annotating, I had seen videos of people with all their annotating supplies, and I love an office supply. I love office supplies. I'm going to do another video of the 11,000 colored gel pens and things that I have. I mean, I love an office supply. So getting the annotation supplies was just heaven for me. And, I saw people who would coordinate their tabs with the covers of the book. People who use all the tabs, every single one of these tabs in a book, they are getting that detailed in their tabbing, their annotating. I was all in. I was like, oh, that's going to be great. I can't wait to buy all this stuff, and I can't wait to use it. So when I actually started trying to do that, it just was distracting. It was confusing. I mean, here I bought a ton of supplies. I bought a bag to put them in. I bought, oh my God, the tabs, all the colored tabs that I bought. There's a ton more in here. The corresponding highlighters, the Post-it notes. I bought Post-it notes to coordinate with the color of the tabs. I got clear Post-it notes. I got, let's see, where are they? Plastic Post-it notes. I don't even really know what these are for anymore. What the benefit of that is. I bought these kind of little tabs. I have a ton. I have a ton of stuff. This is what I use. Everything I use is in here. I use one highlighter, and it's yellow most of the time. I am actually using a different color in these books that I'm reading right now, and I'll show you why later, but I use yellow. I used to try to coordinate the color of the highlighter with the color of the tab, but it's very distracting, it's very time consuming, and it pulls me out of the book, so I just use yellow. I use a black gel pen that's quick drying and non-smearing, because I do write in the margins. Sometimes I'll make notes or write little reactions or things like that in the margins. Not often, but sometimes. So I have a black pen for that. And these are the only tabs I use. Just these 4 colors. This is it. Green is world building. Yellow is character development. Blue is like important plot points. Things that I think are very important to know that might come into play later, you know, just important plot points. Red is for extreme emotional reactions. If it elicits an extreme emotional reaction from me, I put a red flag there. If it's, you know, sorrow, anger, happiness, laughter, red. This is it, just these 4. The index cards I use for quick reference. I think I showed y'all some when I was doing my review of One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I typically usually only have 1 or 2 cards, and I just use them for quick reference to put information on here, so I don't have to keep referring back to, you know, to the book, like search for, okay, now what was that? Who is this? What's important? What's the relevance? I put all of that on these index cards. For these books that I'm reading now, I actually have too many index cards, and probably once I finish reading the second book, I'm going to condense them down, because it's a lot to juggle around, but right now I'm using these. So these are the books I'm reading right now. Fourth Wing, the first book in the series. This is my 3rd read of this book, because I read it the first time and I did not annotate. It was before annotating, and I loved it. It got me back into, I was in a reading slump. This got me out of my reading slump. Also, I was reading exclusively on my Kindle or audiobooks. I had gotten a gift card to Books A Million, and so I used it to get this book, and it, you know, kind of reminded me of my love for physical books. So now I'm super into physical books. So this is Fourth Wing. Iron Flame. I've just kind of started my 2nd read of this, because I'm having to get ready for the 3rd book, which just came out Tuesday, which is Onyx Storm. So I'll show you how I have annotated these books. I'll use Fourth Wing because it's done. But so here's all my little tabs, and like some people, I mean, you can't even see the pages for all the tabs. And I don't even know, like a lot of people will go back and refer to these tabs later on, like especially if they are reading a book further on in the series, they'll go back and refer to tabs in the previous book and find something, you know, relevance to something they're reading there. I don't know how they do it when they've got like a gajillion tabs in here. I try to not do that. I could do that, but I try not to. So, but yeah, so here's my tabs. Let's see. I'm trying to find some good, like here's, you know, I do the yellow highlighting. Always yellow, except in this book, there is information that's important that I don't want to tab, but I may want to look for later. So I've highlighted it in yellow because there's just a bunch of it. There's a ton of this stuff in here, this particular type of information. It's all throughout the book, and I don't want all those tabs sticking out, but I can easily go flip through and find the purple highlighting and, you know, refer to that if I need to. But what I've also started doing, because there is so much of it now, is I'm making note of it on my cards. So that's how and why I annotate books. I just find the reading experience a lot more fulfilling when I do this for these long series and these, you know, really involved books with a ton of moving parts. Like I said, I rarely do it. Well, I've only ever done it for one standalone book. I'm not saying I won't do it for another standalone book, but I typically save this for the series, and especially the fantasy series. And it just, I just enjoy it. And, you know, so if you annotate and like to annotate, or when you talk about annotating, I would love to talk to somebody about annotating, because I'm the only person I know who does it. Because when I mention it to anybody about annotating, and everybody is always like, oh, I hated annotating. I had to do that in school. I'm not going to do that, you know, for my personal life. I'm not doing it for fun. To each his own, but I enjoy it, and I think it, you know, it augments my reading experience, and I think that, yeah, I just really like it. So that's how and why I annotate, and that's what I use for annotating supplies. If anybody needs any, I got plenty.